You know, decades before any of us had even heard of a large language model, the science fiction writer Isaac Asimov laid out this blueprint for education. And it is almost spookily relevant for the age of AI. And it really all boils down to this one central question. What if our schools were actually designed for the world we live in right now? A world completely saturated with artificial intelligence. Because here's the fundamental paradox we're all wrestling with. On the one hand, AI has this just immense power. But on the other, it has a massive flaw. It can hallucinate. Basically, it can make up convincing falsehoods with total, unwavering confidence. And this exact problem is what Asimov's educational vision was built to solve. So let's start with what we're calling the AI education problem. But for Asimov, the real issue was never about the technology itself. Nope, it was always about our human response to it. The guy was just incredibly ahead of his time. Asimov totally understood that once machines could handle the what, all the facts and figures, then the mission of human education had to shift completely. It had to become all about the how and the why. How do we think critically? And why should we use all this amazing tech for good? And this is where it gets really interesting. He didn't just see a challenge for our schools, he actually predicted a societal sickness, a condition he called the disease of boredom. Just let that sink in for a second. He wrote this in 1964. Asimov predicted that a future full of automation would lead to a society of enforced leisure, which sounds great, but it would create this massive vacuum of purpose that would become a genuine disease. And the connection to today is just undeniable, right? What he predicted as a lack of meaningful creative work is exactly what we see all around us. The endless scroll, the passive consumption of content. He saw this not as some new moral failing on our part, but as the direct, predictable outcome of a world without meaningful struggle. So what was the antidote to this disease? Well, Asimov believed the highest calling for a human in an automated world was creative work. He argued that the people who could still create, not just consume, they would become the true elite of the future. So this brings us to his solution, a complete and total redesign of the school curriculum, one that moves away from just memorizing facts and instead builds a foundation of uniquely human skills. He proposed what we can basically call a universal basic curriculum, and it all rests on two essential pillars. First, the core tools of logic and reasoning, and second, the foundation of humanistic wisdom. This first pillar, the how of thinking, is basically intellectual self-defense. I mean, think about it. In a world just flooded with AI-generated text, knowing how to spot a logical fallacy or actually understand statistics isn't some academic luxury. It's a survival skill. The second pillar, the why, is all about context and consequence. This is how we learn to wield powerful technologies safely and ethically. Subjects like philosophy, history, and literature teach us about human nature, all the messy, irrational stuff that machines just don't get. Really, Asimov's entire curriculum was built on this one powerful idea. He knew that technology would be powerful and, yeah, potentially dangerous. But the answer isn't to run away from it in ignorance. The answer is to cultivate the wisdom to manage it. Okay, so if that's what we learn, what about how we learn it? Well, in Asimov's vision, this required completely transforming the role of the human teacher. And the shift he imagined is fundamental. We have to move away from the sage on the stage, the teacher whose job is just to transfer facts into your brain. The goal is to become the Asimovian model, the teacher as a curiosity catalyst, whose real job is to inspire better questions. So what is a curiosity catalyst? It's a teacher who lets the AI handle all the rote memorization, all the basic facts. This frees up their time and energy to do the truly human work, helping a student find what they are genuinely passionate about and removing all those obstacles that kill a kid's natural desire to learn. So how does a teacher actually do this? Well, the method is pretty straightforward. First, you follow the bent. You personalize learning around what a student is already interested in. Second, you ask better questions instead of just spoon-feeding them answers. And third, you frame logic not as some boring school subject, but as an essential tool for defending yourself against manipulation and misinformation. All right, let's zoom out to the ultimate goal of Asimov's whole vision. It's about completely dissolving the artificial barrier that we've built between school and, well, the rest of life. You know the old model, right? It's a straight line. You go to school, you finish learning, you go to work. Asimov's model is totally different. It's a continuous loop where self-directed learning and creative work just feed each other for your entire life. The idea that you could ever be done with your education becomes completely absurd. And this really gets to his core philosophy. True learning isn't something that's forced on you from the outside. It's something that bubbles up from within. It's a joyful, lifelong pursuit, one that's driven by your own curiosity, not some mandatory chore you have to finish. Now, you might think this all sounds a bit soft and philosophical, but that's not the whole story. This philosophy doesn't lead away from difficult technical skills, it leads directly to them. Why? Because things like coding and robotics are the physical manifestation of logic, creativity, and curiosity. They are where ideas become real. At the end of the day, Asimov's vision forces us to ask a really fundamental question about our own priorities. In a world that is just overflowing with artificial answers, maybe the most important skill we can possibly teach our children is how to ask truly human questions.